then when it got to the second half of the season, and Juju has been taking over, she's had a phenomenal second half of her sophomore season, it turns to, oh, Juju is going to pass Caitlin Clark's scoring record. And that has been the conversation. Anytime Juju has a great game, people on one side are saying, oh, Juju's so much better than Caitlin.
Juju Watkins just went viral, but not for a highlight, not for a record, and not even for a comeback. It was for what she said about Caitlin Clark. A simple Sports Illustrated interview turned into a full-blown internet storm overnight. One clip, just a few seconds long, had fans convinced Juju took a subtle shot at the most famous name in women's basketball. But when you listen closely, the story is very different. Because instead of hate, Juju showed something we almost never see in modern basketball: respect without rivalry. She praised Caitlin's clutch shooting, her ball handling. She even called her the coldest in the game. But social media didn't care. Within hours, the quote was twisted, edited, and turned into another Juju versus Caitlin headline. That single moment said a lot more about the state of women's basketball than it did about either player. Two young stars, both redefining the sport, being pitted against each other just to feed clicks.
Now, there's a lot of players in the country playing Division I basketball. Nobody scored more points in one game this year than you.
That's crazy. Yeah. More to come.
Yeah, Caitlin Clark who?
No, don't do that.
Okay.
Don't do that. Much respect there.
But what most fans missed is this: Juju Watkins' story isn't just about a viral quote. It's about a rising star coming back from injury, rebuilding her career, and trying to navigate fame, pressure, and comparisons she never asked for. And the truth behind her connection with Caitlin Clark? That's the part nobody's talking about. Because this isn't a rivalry. It's a preview of what's coming next. Before the injury, before the comparisons, before the viral interviews, Juju Watkins was already the name everyone in women's basketball was whispering about. At just 19 years old, she wasn't playing like a freshman. She was playing like a legend in the making. From packed gyms in Los Angeles to ESPN highlights almost every week, Juju was different. Her footwork, her poise, her confidence, it all screamed superstar. And she didn't just meet expectations, she shattered them. At USC, she didn't ease her way into the spotlight. She took it, averaging over 27 points per game, breaking program records, and putting her team in serious Final Four contention.
We look at a situation in which Caitlin Clark comes into the WNBA, and instead of getting that type of guidance, well wishes, appreciation, all the adjectives that you can think of to describe someone good.
Her charisma made fans love her, and her toughness made opponents respect her. And the business world noticed too. Within months, she signed with Nike, inked one of the biggest NIL deals in women's college basketball, and joined Clutch Sports, the same powerhouse agency behind LeBron James. It was clear, Juju wasn't just an athlete, she was a brand. But even as the hype grew, something bigger was happening. For the first time since Caitlin Clark's Iowa explosion, there was another young woman who could move numbers. Ticket sales, TV ratings, social media views, all without ever stepping into the WNBA. She was next. Everyone knew it, but nobody could predict what would happen next, because just as her rise hit full speed, everything stopped. It happened in a flash.
If Juju was allowed to come out in the draft, Fever they will regret that they took Caitlin Clark #1.
One wrong step, one awkward landing, and suddenly the arena went silent. Juju Watkins had torn her ACL. Just months after becoming the face of college basketball, her dream season came crashing to a halt in the most painful way possible. It wasn't just an injury, it was the kind of moment that can derail entire careers. She was on the verge of leading USC to the Final Four, maybe even a national title. Instead, she was helped off the floor, tears in her eyes, and fans everywhere left wondering if they'd just witnessed the end of something special before it had even begun. Doctors confirmed what everyone feared: a full ACL tear, out for the entire 2025 to 2026 season. For most players, that kind of news can crush motivation. But for Juju, it lit a fire. While the world moved on to the next headline, she stayed locked in, rehabbing, training, and working behind the scenes to make sure her name never faded.
Were you looking forward to that Caitlin matchup?
Yeah, that would have been tough.
Oh my God.
She's amazing, and just seeing what she's accomplished is so motivating.
What is that feeling like, knowing that you're the face of women's college basketball here?
Whoa, that's a big title. I wouldn't be considered the person I am without my competition.
She kept her sponsors happy, stayed visible through media appearances, and somehow turned an injury into a masterclass in resilience. And here's the wild part: her popularity didn't drop. It grew. Her Nike deal stayed strong, her following exploded, and her name remained trending. Because even without a basketball in her hands, Juju Watkins was still the story. But with every comeback story comes one question: what happens when the spotlight turns competitive again? It didn't take long for the comparisons to start. The moment Juju Watkins' name started trending, the internet did what it always does. It created sides. Caitlin Clark versus Juju Watkins. The sharpshooter from Iowa versus the showstopper from Los Angeles.
I personally think in just 2 years at USC, she's already passed Caitlin Clark in terms of influence, but what is your take on that?
What do you say? Like, what do you mean by influence?
Like, I feel like what Caitlin Clark did for women's college basketball, it blew everything up. There's more eyes, there's more attention.
Two different worlds, two different eras, one unavoidable comparison. But here's the truth: Juju never asked for that narrative. In fact, she's been one of the few players to push back against it. During interviews, she's made it clear she admires what Caitlin has done for the sport. She's not trying to replace her. She's trying to build on what she started. Yet fans and media outlets can't help themselves. They clip, twist, and spin every word into something bigger. Every compliment sounds like a challenge. Every honest answer becomes shade. And to make things worse, the internet doesn't just compare their skills, it compares their personalities, their fan bases, even their sponsorships. Suddenly, Juju's confidence is labeled as arrogance. Caitlin's poise is framed as entitlement. Two women working toward the same goal, somehow turned into rivals for clicks. Juju summed it up perfectly in one line: we gotta separate the basketball from the person.
She's actually the Michael Jordan of women's basketball, if not Caitlin. And then people on the other side, anytime they see Juju have a good game, they want to pull up anytime Caitlin has had a great game. It has gotten absurd, and I'm so sick of it because I don't think any of it is productive.
She wasn't just talking about Caitlin Clark, she was talking about all of them. The players constantly forced into rivalries they never signed up for. But even with that message, one interview would change everything again. Because what Juju said next didn't divide fans, it stunned them. It started as a simple question, one of those fun, casual interview prompts meant to fill a few seconds of airtime. If you could build your perfect player, whose skills would you take? Without hesitation, Juju Watkins started naming names. Araike's accuracy, Caitlin's handles, Chelsea's strength, Caitlin's range, Caitlin's clutch. She said Caitlin Clark's name 3 times, more than anyone else. The clip lasted barely 20 seconds, but the internet ran with it for days. Within hours, it was everywhere. On Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Some fans praised Juju for showing love to her peers. Others accused her of riding the hype. And then came the manufactured drama. Juju admits Caitlin's better. Juju throws shade. Juju can't escape Clark's shadow. It didn't matter what she actually said. The narrative had already been written. But if you watched her tone, calm, respectful, almost grateful, you saw the truth. Juju wasn't competing with Caitlin Clark in that moment. She was acknowledging her. It was rare. One star giving another credit in a league and culture obsessed with rivalries. And yet, that one moment proved something bigger. The women's basketball world doesn't just celebrate stars anymore. It turns them into brands, into headlines, into comparisons that never stop. And behind all that noise, a quiet tug of war was already happening. Not between Juju and Caitlin, but between the companies backing them. On the surface, Juju Watkins and Caitlin Clark are just two elite athletes on different paths. But behind them, there's a quiet corporate rivalry shaping the future of women's basketball. Caitlin Clark is the face of Wilson, the same company that built an entire campaign around her custom basketball line, complete with a $13 billion exposure valuation. She's tied to Hy-Vee, Gatorade, and a wave of Midwestern brands that made her a household name.
And someone who's going to bring value to your sport, to your league. She got the exact opposite. She got the nasty comments, the digs, the incessant.
Meanwhile, Juju Watkins represents the other empire, Nike and Clutch Sports. Her team is backed by Rich Paul, the man who revolutionized athlete branding and the same agency that turned LeBron James into a global business. Nike wants Juju to be their next big story, a modern, marketable California superstar with a message that resonates beyond the court. So when Juju praised Caitlin Clark on camera, the moment wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. Two brands, two philosophies, both vying for control of the same market. The next generation of women's basketball fans. Caitlin represents tradition, the clean-cut, small-town hero who broke viewership records. Juju represents the evolution, Hollywood confidence, Gen Z flair, crossover appeal. And somewhere between those two identities, the WNBA's future is quietly being built. The irony? While fans argue over which player's better, the real competition isn't between Caitlin and Juju. It's between Nike and Wilson, Clutch and corporate, each trying to define who owns the story of women's basketball. But as all this plays out behind closed doors, something even more interesting is happening in public, the way fans are starting to choose sides. It's wild how fast admiration can turn into division. One clip, one headline, and suddenly the internet has decided who's the hero and who's the villain. Caitlin Clark gets painted as the golden child, the savior of women's basketball, the ratings magnet, the name every network can't stop saying. Meanwhile, Juju Watkins gets cast as the challenger, the flashy newcomer, the LA superstar with too much swagger for some people's taste. But that narrative isn't real, it's manufactured. And it says more about us than it does about either player. Because when fans and media build rivalries like this, they're not celebrating greatness, they're controlling it. They turn every handshake into a headline, every compliment into a controversy. Even a smile between Caitlin and Juju gets analyzed frame by frame like it's a secret message. And the craziest part? Both women have handled it better than anyone expected. Caitlin keeps her focus, never engaging in drama. Juju laughs off the noise, reminding everyone that she's got her own lane. Still, the internet loves conflict more than context. So while Juju's working her way back from injury, the rivalry keeps growing without her. Every viral post, every meme, every hot take adds fuel to a fire neither of them lit. But Juju's next move might finally shift the story, because her comeback isn't just about playing again. It's about changing the entire conversation. For months, Juju Watkins has been off the court but never out of sight. Every rehab session, every media appearance, every quiet update from USC's gym, it all points to one thing. She's coming back, and she's coming back different. In a recent sit-down, Juju opened up about what this past year taught her. She talked about patience, leadership, and mental toughness, the kind you only build when the game is taken away from you. She admitted there were moments of doubt, times she thought she'd be back sooner only to face another setback. But instead of letting frustration break her, she used it to rebuild herself from the inside out. Don't waste the season, she said. Even if you're sidelined, find a way to grow. That's not something you hear from a 19-year-old. That's something you hear from someone who's already seen both sides of fame, the spotlight and the silence. Now, as 2026 creeps closer, the countdown has already started. Her return isn't just a comeback, it's a statement. Because when Juju steps back onto that court, she won't just be fighting for herself. She'll be representing every young player who's been compared, doubted, or overlooked. And maybe that's the real message behind everything she said about Caitlin Clark. It was never about rivalry. It was about respect, recovery, and rewriting what success looks like in women's basketball. But make no mistake, when Juju Watkins returns, the sport will feel it. Because her next chapter won't be about catching up to anyone. It'll be about changing the game for good. So maybe the internet got it wrong. Maybe this was never Juju versus Caitlin. Maybe this was about two generational players walking different paths, both carrying women's basketball into a brand new era. Because if we've learned anything from this story, it's that greatness doesn't always need a villain. Sometimes the next revolution starts quietly, through respect, resilience, and the refusal to play by anyone else's script. Caitlin Clark has already changed how the world views the WNBA. And now, Juju Watkins is about to change what comes next. Two forces, two timelines, one shared goal, to make sure women's basketball never fades again. So when Juju finally steps back onto that court next season, remember this moment. Remember the interview everyone misunderstood, because that wasn't shade, it was foreshadowing. The next chapter isn't rivalry, it's legacy. And trust me, when that ball tips off again, the whole world will be watching.